shock
It's
jock,
not
mate.
psychic
You're just
ability.
pathetic. Nobody's going to
No
listen
arguments.
to you. You're
When
an
are you going to
aggressive,
have an argument?
insecure man.
I'm going to tell you what's going to
We're not
happen. This
taking
is
you
going to go
seriously.
well. This is going to go viral, and a lot of people are going to take me seriously. And all they're going to remember is that I told you that you couldn't put down the Dunkin' Donuts long enough to make an argument.
You all are fairly stupid, and everything that's being said is just like a comedy show.
You
being
think you
played
can
off
change your sex? How can you ever call anybody stupid?
Of trans athletes in women's sport. I've been talking about this, as you have, for many years, and we've reached a point where the current president of the United States has basically announced a total ban on any trans athletes competing in women's sport, including the upcoming global events happening in the United States, which is great. But it seems to me utterly astonishing that we have John Oliver, who's a fellow Brit, who is on American television and for 45 minutes seriously trying to argue that people who are born biological males have no advantage over biological females when it comes to sport. How can this still be happening?
It's utterly ludicrous. Either we have women's sports or we don't. Either we recognise that sports are segregated for good reason, or we don't, and we put everybody in together and then see what happens. Which is like the bad old days when girls and women wouldn't come forward to compete, or they wouldn't join tournaments. Even if you look at something like poker, which Oliver was joking about, how can this be an issue? How can poker even be discriminatory? There's no strength involved. But the sexist environment of poker tournaments and what men would call joking and teasing and the like put many women off competing. And so let's just see what happens if we then decide that there should be no single-sex sports and that women's sports were ridiculous to start with, because that's what he's arguing.
Yeah, Stasia, look, as I've repeatedly made clear about my own position, which often gets completely misconstrued, as I think does Julie's, as I think does J.K. Rowling and everybody else. My position is that I absolutely respect people who are trans. I respect people who are trans's rights to fairness and equality and safety. I want trans people to have the same fairness, equality and safety that I enjoy, or that my daughter enjoys, for example. So let's be clear about that. Nothing that I'm about to say is what some people try and frame it as transphobic, right? I'm not remotely transphobic. I am fully supportive of trans people's rights to lead the same life as the rest of us. However, and it's a big however, when it erodes, when the battle for trans rights to fairness, equality in particular, but also safety, when that erodes clearly women's rights to fairness and equality and safety, I have a big problem with that. And no place is this more glaring than in the sporting arena, where you see time and again now biological men who identify as trans, who were pretty unsuccessful competing against other biological men, and suddenly they're winning against women or taking Olympic places from women, etc., etc. And I think the UN came up with nearly 900. I mean, John Oliver tried to ridicule this, but nearly 900 medals around the world, I think, in the last year went to trans athletes in women's sport. This cannot be right. It's not fair. It's not equal. As we saw in the Paris Olympics, in the boxing ring, where you had boxers competing who were banned from the World Championships because they had reportedly male chromosomes, and you had women boxers quitting after 40 seconds because they'd never been hit so hard, genuinely fearing they might get killed in the ring. When it comes to this, we are now reaching, to me, not just an unfair and unequal place in this debate, but a dangerous place in this debate. What do you say to that?
I think it's difficult. I think that there's a lot of emphasis being put on trans people in sports specifically. I made it very clear, like, I am not here to spit facts or spew anything in terms of like statistics or anything like that. I have my lived experience as a trans person. I feel that there's so much attention being put on to this
I feel that's crazy.
specific subject, because what you guys really want underlying is the eradication of trans people and them to not be involved in any
Bruh.
system.
No, you see there, look, but
Victim.
look, Stassi,
That is the
you
dumbest
will
argument I've
immediately-
ever heard in my life.
Right, it's just ludicrous. Where have you got that
What a
from?
bad
Where is anything
representation of
I
a
have
trans
ever
person
said?
to speak out for others.
I'm more so referring to
Yeah, I
your
just
right.
honestly.
I have seen certain things that you said in other interviews, Pierce, with like my friend Blossom and other trans individuals. And
Yeah.
I just feel that that is being put
And what was
on.
transphobic? What have I ever said that could be remotely construed as transphobic or trans-hating or wanting to get rid of trans people? Ever? I challenge you right now. Tell me.
I haven't really directed that at you just from sitting here.
That's
I more
crazy.
so am just here to say that I feel that the issue that's being pressed is because it's a
You just directed it at him. What are you talking? You
What the?
directed it at him.
I think that the issue that is being put on trans athletes is a way to eradicate trans people.
But this is, with
That's crazy.
respect, this
Pierce,
is
can I interject
ridiculous.
for a moment?
In the 1960s and 70s, when feminists that came before me set up women's shelters, rape crisis centres, hospital wards, prison wings for women, recognising that some men, not all, but a sizable minority, are a threat to women because sexual violence and harassment is a threat, we weren't told by men, not all of them were pleased, but largely they understood. We weren't told by men, you're trying to erase and eradicate men. The vast
Right.
majority of men understood why we needed to do this. All we're doing is saying men, and you can call them trans women if you like, but men have no place in women's prisons, domestic violence shelters, and sports.
The fact that she bring up feminism is kind of crazy because feminism is the cause of most problems in society at the moment. Because the feminist movement was the hatred of man, and they wanted to go out and do their own thing because they didn't like a strong masculine man. And by doing that, the feminists, they start working, raising kids. And by raising kids, they impose the will on the kids, and the kids grow up to be oppressors because they're running off feelings, which will cause destruction. We're seeing it happening right now. And because the women raise the kids end up growing to be oppressors because they're controlled by the female spirit, which has to do with feelings.
Well, wait a second. Hang on.
Okay, Emily, you want to do... yeah, Andrew, I'm going to come to you. Andrew, I'll come to you one moment. Just let Emily jump in on what you're about to say.
I just think it's so infuriating because ultimately I know many trans people and I've spoken to them about, playing in women's sports, etc. And the biggest issue they face is that they just want to be accepted. Now, if I was a trans woman and I just wanted to be accepted, I'm going to do the exact opposite of what you're doing. You want to paint all of these labels on you. You want to play identity politics. You want to play the victim, but you want it to be treated as if you're any superior. That's not equality. You receiving special treatment that does not make you equal but makes you superior to others is not looking to be included. It's actually making people detest your cause. It's making people think that you are a moron. And the way that you're trying to represent the trans community as a whole by just denying that there's a threat and being delusional about it is not helping the trans people. You're making people look at you from the outside and say, wow, they are out of touch with reality.
I think that the verbiage that you use in this statement is very clear on where you stand on trans issues.
That's kind of crazy. She's not listening to what she's saying. She's only going off how it makes her feel.
I'm going to go back to my
The children of the lies, man.
original point. You guys trying to take out trans people sports is a way to eradicate trans
No, we're
people
not.
from public.
But we're not.
I know what's wrong with them. They're the devil. They're literally the children of the devil.
But we're trying to
has said
eradicate
anything.
lunatics like
Nobody,
yourself.
Stasia,
What's your
nobody has
solution?
said that. And this is what happens, if you don't mind me saying, what happens, the way that trans activists let themselves down, in my opinion, and you can respond to this, is that you try and shut down perfectly legitimate, in fact, urgently important debate by saying that anyone who dares to question this is transphobic and wants to get rid of trans people. I don't think anyone so far on this panel has said they want to get rid of trans people or anything like it. And yet you keep saying you people all want to get rid of trans people. Why do you believe that? Where have you got that from? You cite my interviews with some of your friends, but where have I said anything remotely that could be construed as transphobic? I don't get it.
I think the verbiage that was being used, it's very clear you guys stand on all trans issues.
The verbiage hurt my feelings, okay? Change your verbiage.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So what is the solution for the trans people that are playing sports? What's the solution for them? We're just supposed to kick them out all entirely?
Let me give you the solution. Let me give you the solution. The solution's very straightforward. Almost all of them competed against biological men like themselves before, but they did it far less successfully. So you either go back, trans women athletes either compete against their biological sex, or you create an entirely new category for trans athletes. What you don't do is allow them to destroy the integrity of women's sport, which is what is happening. So it's very straightforward how you solve this. I don't want trans people to be banned from playing sport. I just want them to be banned, like I did with the dopers when they were cheating in sport. I want them to be banned from utilising an unfair advantage. It's simple as that.
But women are socialist. Women like to make other people feel good out of guilt, out of resentment. And they actually hate these people, but they think they love them because they get a feelings from making them feel good, which is actually kind of crazy once you get to understand it. But I don't care. Listen, this is what women vote for. This is the consequences. I don't care if men compete in women's sport. I don't care if women compete in men's sport. Women cause this problem, so let them deal with it. The man should just step away, do nothing about it, and let the woman deal with it. They cause the issue because they vote for these politicians, these Democrat people that like, oh, the Democrat makes you feel good. And then they bring problems to you. Never go with your feelings. For the feelings to be there, you have to go in thoughts first. And you're counseling with the thoughts, which is the devil. And the devil give you these feelings and give you these thoughts, and it makes you feel good. And you go off of it, not knowing it's leading you for destruction. So I don't care. Let the women deal with their own problem that they created.
Can I ask her a question? Would you think it's fair if Novak Djokovic identified as a woman and then played Serena Williams in a tennis set? Do you think that would be fair to Serena Williams, who worked her whole life to become a star tennis player, just to get swept by Novak, who's the #1 men's tennis player? I just want to know if you think that that's fair.
No, I just think that the question is ridiculous because
Why is it ridiculous?
That's not
crazy.
ridiculous at all.
I see how it's trying to be framed. I'm gonna keep going back to my original point. Your guys' excessive attention on wanting to
Amazing.
remove trans people from sports and have them play in their biological sex, which makes no sense because even in John Oliver's interview,
Or in their own category.
in the category that would make
Or in their own
sense to
category.
me, there's not enough of them to create a category. Like the percentile is so small.
Actually, there actually are an increasingly large number of trans athletes around the world. Actually, it's not true. Andrew, you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you. This seems to me, this whole debate so far highlights the way this debate has been framed now for years, which is that any attempt to question what is obviously grotesquely unfair and unequal and indeed unsafe is branded transphobic, even when there's no evidence to suggest that the people saying it are transphobic.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, basically everybody in this panel is wrong. So to start with, this person says, well, you know, the thing is you just want to erase transgender people altogether, Pierce, and then says, I wasn't saying that, Pierce. I wasn't saying that you want to erase trans people, not you specifically, when clearly that's what you were saying. At least get behind the statements that you're making. The TERF starts out by saying, well, I've been here reinforcing women's rights this entire time, right? And then the TERF says, right on top of that, well, but, you know, poker's very misogynistic. She can't wait to dunk on men. Very first thing she does is dunk on men in order to somehow elevate women. right? You're all insane. The truth is that the only reason that this happens to begin with is because women vote for it. They vote for it.
That
They
is
vote
true.
blue. They vote left. They vote in the same politicians who get behind all of this stuff. You're the deciding vote, right? And you have empowered women to do
Very
that
true.
as much as possible
Very
for
true.
the political process to do that. All of you are responsible for this. Every last one of you.
Really glad that you're so
Emily
perfect.
as well.
Yeah.
You vote for Trump. I don't know what you mean. You vote for Trump this term? What about the other term? And are you staying home raising your kids?
Leave me out of this one. I'm good.
If you have kids.
Well, we'll see.
Well, that's what Andrew kept saying. All of you. Do you include Emily, Andrew, or not?
Well, I just assumed it. I just assumed it. But this is the truth. The truth is, we begin with these crazy ideas, right? Under patriarchal rule, under men, this would never have happened, right? If you look at how men vote, they vote against this nonsense. And it's fathers who are on the front lines against it. It's women who are trying to transition the children, not men. Give me a case example of where male fathers are trying to transition their kids. It doesn't exist. It's a female-only phenomenon. Literally a female-only phenomenon.
That is insane.
Yeah, show me one. Show me one male father who's fighting in the courts to transition their son to a girl. No.
Well, now it's probably relevant because guess what? Mom raised these boys to grow up and to be subjective to the woman. So the woman now convinced them to trans their kid into boy or girl because the man is so weak. The woman, and anytime you listen to the woman, you will suffer for it. You surely will.
Yeah, I made a
That's a reach.
podcast
I
series
see men on
about this.
TikTok that are diseased.
I interviewed quite a few fathers.
Go ahead.
All right, well,
Women get their thoughts and thinking side from the devil. 100%.
For this. But the point is that this is something that benefits men, and it's men that are the ones that are saying they're women. They are all of a sudden the oppressed, and feminists like me are the oppressor. And
Yes, you actually are the oppressor because you raise your kids to be just like you, and your kids grow up with feelings and they oppress society because they're being controlled by the female spirit, by the devil itself. That's why society is full of violence and people do things off of feelings.
and that they
voted
want,
for it.
they're too weak and pathetic to fight
You
and play
voted for
against other men. And what do?
You
They
vote
come
left?
and beat up on women.
Do you vote left, ma'am?
It's the same man you woman raised as a single mom or two-parent home when the man is weak. Those are the kid that come back and beat up on the woman because the kid hates women and he just doesn't know it. That's crazy.
I don't know what vote left means.
Do you vote for the left-wing party of your
Do you vote for
nation?
Democrats?
Do you vote
Oh,
for
I mean,
what would
I'm a
be considered
British-
the Democrats of your nation?
No, I wouldn't have voted for the Democrats. I would not have voted for the disgrace of that party. And I also wouldn't have
Yeah.
voted for Trump. But the point
That's crazy that you wouldn't vote for Trump. Daddy is home and all the women don't like daddy.
If we look,
I
hang on,
believe
Cam,
in-
let me finish.
we-
We'll follow
we
up.
live in
Very
a
quickly,
different-
very quickly, very quickly.
we live in a
response.
different context
What I'm
here.
saying to you is this: it's very simple.
Clearly.
If you look at the voting patterns of women in both the UK and the United States, they're usually the deciding vote when it comes to degeneracy. That
What's that got to
includes
do with
when
anything?
it includes on the trans issue. So here you are, it's the very thing that you push for empowerment of women that is now causing your very problem. You have to now convince women. Men are already there. Men have already said, nope, we don't
Apart
want
from
this,
the
we never
men
wanted
that
it,
are claiming
it's garbage.
to be women.
What?
Yeah, apart from the
That's crazy.
women who are claiming to be men, which now it's almost equalized. Remember that part? Right? This phenomenon, though, is categorically rejected by men and reinforced by women. And turfs like you did everything that you could possibly do in order to push that. You did everything you could do to push that. And now you get to reap the whirlwind. So I don't care if women in their sports teams are getting their teeth kicked in. I don't care. Reap what you sow.
I don't care either.
As you sow, so shall you reap. And
You
then you
seem
get
a
exactly
nice
what you
person.
deserve.
You seem like a lovely person.
What does lovely have to do with the truth? You tell the truth to women, they say you're misogynist and you hate women. You tell the truth overall, you're not a nice person. No one cares about your feelings. We're talking about the truth, and we don't care how it makes you feel.
I'm sorry that you have to deal with the consequences of your own actions.